My lords, one of the things that's often been frustrating for me in the House of Lords, in your lordship's house, in the 7 years that I've been here, is that we talk about the most incredibly important things, and yet quite often our language is so obtuse and so complex that although we understand what we're talking about, other people outside don't, and therefore a lot of these really important issues don't get the sort of publicity that they really ought to. Now, following the noble Lord Hendy is a mixed blessing. That was a devastating outline of exactly why ISDS really shouldn't be any part of trade negotiations. But at the same time, he has reduced my speech to ashes, because that's exactly what I was going to argue. And quite honestly, I don't understand how any Conservative, how any member of the Conservative Party can support the concept of other, not just countries, but other corporations actually having any rights over our country. And it seems to me that the mechanisms of ISDS are far worse than anything that could be, any charge that could be brought against the EU court system. I just don't understand how the government thinks that it's a reasonable thing to do. The rule of law and the right to legal remedy are both important, but they're best served not by shady arbitration, but open transparency and our legal court proceedings. So I think that the minister should probably argue to everybody in his department that ISDS should not be any part of our trade negotiations. And your lordship's house should actually make it very clear that we will reject any treaty that contains them. It seems to me that the government has made all sorts of promises about reclaiming sovereignty, but how on earth can they make that claim with straight faces when they're actually thinking that ISDS is an appropriate mechanism to put in any trade bill? And while I have the floor, I would quite like to say that the noble Lord Minister in the last group did actually say something about the trade bill, trade being a very useful mechanism for fighting climate change. And the noble Lord Viscount Trenchard mentioned about trade with other countries, lifting those countries out of poverty. So perhaps the noble Viscount could do something about that in Britain and start lifting the millions of people who are on, below, or very close to the poverty line out of poverty. There must be some mechanism that this government could use. But in any case, this whole concept of ISDS should be thrown out as fast as possible.